tell my story, I have to start off with my dad. My dad was one of those men who was considered, people always tell me, how handsome my dad was, because they always say I look like him. So, but my dad was one of those men that, unfortunately, he juggled 2 women, 3 women, 4 women. He was that type of guy. And so he was always back and forth between my mom and the lady who later became his wife. And so my dad, he had a family here, and they both knew about each other. That's how my dad was. My dad literally had my oldest brother. I got 4 brothers. He literally had my oldest brother December the 20th, 1983. And then went to his other girlfriend and had my second to the oldest brother, November the 13th, 1984. Went back to my mom, had me December the 14th, 1985. Went back to my stepmom and had my baby brother, November the 28th, 1986. So I tell you a lot about my dad, right? So, but my dad was one of those people who we like to say he was a functioning addict, which means he smoked crack and he went to work every single day. Right? He did. He smoked crack and went to work every day. And my mom and my dad started to smoke crack together, started doing drugs together. And so my mom was one of those women that she just ran around. All right? And so when I was about 2 years old, my mom left me with a babysitter, this 13-year-old girl babysitting me. And she was just, she went out like she do every other day, go out, hang out. Well, she didn't come back. And so the opposite girl had to call our mom, her parents, like, hey, this lady, she never came home. So nobody couldn't find her. Nobody knew where she was at. Nobody couldn't contact her. So social services got involved, and somebody called the cops, and they was coming to come get me. So somebody called my dad, was like, hey, I got your oldest boy, because my oldest brother, he was always at somebody else's house. His other couple used to always have him. So he was already at their house. So they was like, hey, we're going to take Andre, and somebody need to go get Dray. All right? My dad's name Andre, and all of us named Dray something. So it's Andre Jr., Drayton, Draydell, and Draydario. So my dad. But so my dad, jumped on his bicycle, came and got me, took me back to his house where he eventually married, his wife, and I was basically raised with them. So about 2 years later, my mom came back in the picture trying to get custody of me, and the judge told her, hey, you clean yourself up, get a house, get a job, do all that for a year, you get your son back. My mom was just like, whatever, I'm not doing all that. And so I stayed with my dad and his wife. When I was 5, my dad went to jail for life. And so his wife basically had to raise me. Now, mind you, the family, my dad's wife was a family, was a huge family. There was a guy's named Jackson. There was a huge family. And it was a well-known, well-respected family in the city. And so my dad went to prison for life. So my mom raised me. Now, my stepmom who raised me and my mom hated each other. Right? So my mom's sisters and brothers and family and cousins and all of them hated them. Right? And I can remember as a kid, watching, my family fight, getting into fights. And I didn't know the whole time, that's my family over there who they're fighting. I didn't know. So because I did not know I was adopted. Right? I didn't find that out until I was 12. So when I was 6, 7, 8, around that age, I used to get picked on a lot by the family. I always felt like an outsider. Never felt like I was family. Never felt like I fit in. I used to between my brothers and me, I always used to notice there was a difference in the way that I was treated, the way that they were treated. I always noticed there was a difference. And so, but I didn't know why. And so I remember times where my uncles would get into it with me, or my cousins, or my brothers would be like, my mom ain't your mama anyways. My sister ain't your sister, your mom anyways. My auntie ain't your mom anyways. And you say that to a 6, 7-year-old kid, it make you cry, So I used to cry a lot. And I used to always, just never really fit in. Well, eventually, I got tired of that pain. I got tired of the hurt. And so I started lashing out. right? And so I developed this anger problem. So I became known as the angry boy all the time. I mean, my mom used to make us go to church. You know, parents used to make you go to church, like these make us go to church. And so mom used to send us to church every Sunday. And so in church, I used to call me the little angry boy. So that's how they described me. It was like, you know, one is something, the little angry boy. Anytime they wanted to describe me. All right? So anger and rage became like the thing that nobody could take away from me. Like my anger, that's my identity. Like that's who I am. I'm the little angry boy, and you can't take that from me. So I started lashing out. I started getting into fights in school. I started acting out in school. I started acting out at home, and then my teacher told my mom that I had a learning disability, and on top of that I had a bad temper. So I went to the doctor. I'm saying, well, my teacher wanted to help me back, and so they put me in special ed classes, and so that was when I got put in special ed classes. I mean, I didn't know I was in special ed classes because I was in the second grade, so I was always in these classes. I thought everybody was in these classes until I got up in high school and I realized my friends wasn't in the same classes as me. But that's another story. But so when I was about 10 years old, at this time my aunt used to beat me like crazy for no reason. I mean, there was times where she would wash the dishes and I'm a little 7-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid. I just stick my hand in hot water and it kind of burnt me. No big deal. But she beat me for that. She used to just twist my ear. I used to have real big ears as a kid. I got a small head, so I don't have it now. But my aunt used to always twist my ear all the time, like twist it all the way to the bed, twist no more. And that's how she used to drag me all the way around the house. Now, my mom never knew this was going on. Mind you, she didn't know this was going on, and I didn't tell her this was going on, right? And so my aunt used to, any reason, my aunt just find a reason to beat me, find a reason to make me stand in the corner, make me kiss the wall, make me tell the wall I love the wall, just make me just feel like nothing. And so I continued to lash out. So I constantly got in trouble, constantly got into fights, just taking my anger out on other people. And so when I was 10, my mom used to go out and leave us at my mom's house. And there is when I was sexually abused for the first time. And at the time, this is not my family, This is their family. But at the same time, at this age, I'm thinking this is my family doing this to me. And I always knew that my family hated me. So who am I going to tell? Am I going to tell my mom that her nephew just did this? Am I going to tell, my grandma who he lives with? Who am I going to tell? I can't tell nobody. And so I just kept my mouth closed and just inwardly just hated myself even more. And so this just continued to happen all the time. And so when I was 12, my dad told my mom it's time to sit him down and tell him the story, So my mom sat me down and told me that she wasn't my mom. Now I'm 12. I don't know that my mom is not my mom. People said it. But every time somebody said it up to this point, my mom would be like, I am his mama. Stop saying that. Stop saying that to him. I am his mom. But when she told me that, it was like that thing that kind of like, one more thing happened, I'm going over the edge, And it was that thing that was like, all right, forget life, forget people, I'm fin to kill the world, I was just so angry, and what it was is, I know now in life that it wasn't that I was necessarily angry. I didn't know how to express my emotions. I didn't know how to express what I felt. The only way I knew how to do that is through anger and through rage, And my anger, my temper was so bad. It's like, how like when somebody pick on you, and they pick on you, and they pick on you, and they pick on you, and you just blow up, But it takes a long time to get there. I just got there. Like, my temper was so bad, it didn't take much. Like one little thing, and I'm ready to blow up the world. And so, this anger and this behavior began to pour out into school, pour out into the streets, pour out into the world. And my dad was in jail, so my older brother, who I looked up to a lot, when I was in 8th grade going into 9th grade, he started this game called my mom and her brothers and stuff like that. There was a game called the Pennsylvania Posse because the street they stayed on was Pennsylvania. So there was a game called the Pennsylvania Posse. And so when me and my brother grew up, my brother was a year older than me. When he grew up, you know, our family and the other family that was part of this game was kind of close. And so their nephew, their cousin, their kids and my family kids we was together. So my brother and them started this game called the Veiny Boys. And at this time I had an identity crisis. I didn't know who I belonged to. I look up to my brother a lot. So my brother and them started the game, and when I got ready, I going into high school, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to find significance somewhere, somehow. I wanted to be a part. I wanted to be a part of this game. I used to hear about how much he was fighting in the streets and how, you know, he had a reputation for fighting. Everybody knew he could fight well. Everybody knew he was this. And I was like, you know what? I got all of this anger, all this rage. This is the right place. And I wasn't picked on outside of my house. I wasn't bullied, never bullied. I never was that. So this, when you talk, I used to hear about all this fighting. In my mind, I'm like, this is what I need. I want to be a part of this gang. I want to be a part of this fight. You know, my brother, he never wanted me to be a part of it. He always made me stay at home. And I'm like, you got to fight. Let me fight. I'm big enough. I'm old enough. Let me come fight. And so when I got in high school, the high school that I was going to, all the Veiny Boys was at this high school. So my brother, he dropped out of school, and it was like, you can't stop me now. I'm in high school. I'm here. I've arrived. And so I was hanging with the Veiny Boys every single day. And one time we had a party at my mom's house, and a big fight broke out. And I ended up hitting the guy with a baseball bat. And that was kind of like my initiation into this game. And the next week, I got my Veiny Boy tattoo, and I was a Veiny Boy. So that was another turning point in my life. Probably if I can think of a worst decision that I ever made in my life, that was one of the ones, because life turned crazy after that. I played football. I ran track in high school. I always wanted to go to the NFL. You know, I always wanted to go to Olympics. I ran a 100-yard dash, 200-yard dash. I ran like a 10-9, 100-yard dash, a 4.40, and I just always wanted a better life. But I always thought that people come from where I come from. We don't have better lives. We don't have houses. We don't have 401ks. We don't have big jobs. In high school, I had two things in my mind. I said there's two ways out of the hood. I said there's two options for people like me. Either we go to college to play some type of sport, or we sell dope. Those was my options. Now we know that's not the truth, right? But I don't know too many people that make it out of the hood educationally. So I can't. So there's nobody I can see that I can say, you know what? All I gotta do is get a good education. I don't know nobody going to college for education. I know people going to college for sports, and the ones that don't go to college for sports, they end up on the corner selling drugs. So those are my options. So we started fighting bad. It got crazy bad. So like the newspaper, the mayor, the sheriff, everybody was trying to somehow get us together and try to get this resolved before somebody start getting killed, because they started going from just fights and clubs to bars to now we're shooting at each other. And so it started to get real bad, and it was just like we were just basically like destroying our city in a sense. And so that started happening, and so we were fighting every day, shooting, and just a whole bunch of crazy stuff. People, throats getting slit, and just it was getting bad. And so I remember being in high school, talking to my coach, and my coach was like, "Coach, she really wanted me to go to college. She really wanted me to get out of the hood. She really wanted me to live a better life." And so one day I got a letter. I think I was in 11th grade. I got a letter from Middle Tennessee University, just out of the blue. I never applied for college, just popped up. And so I filled out the application and sent it back. And it was like, that hope, right? Like, I just got a letter from Middle Tennessee University. Like, it wasn't a scholarship, but it was a letter telling me that I can apply. You know, I'm like, so in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing all this gangs and this drugs, and you know, like every time I sold weed. All right, I was just selling weed in school and stuff like that. But so I was like, but I had that hope, you know, like, dude, I'm making it out. My homeboy's like, yeah, bro, you going to college, man? You chill, you know? I'm excited. So I get a letter back from Tennessee University that, sorry, Mr. Bonney, we can't accept you. So I go to my guidance counselor, ask, like, well, what's going on? Why? And it was because I was in special ed classes. And Middle Tennessee University, if I remember correctly, was a D2 college. And you can't go to a D1 or D2 college, D3 college, on a special ed diploma unless you're on a full ride scholarship. And so, once again, it was like, there's life. Boom, I told you it ain't going to be nothing. I don't know why you keep hoping. You keep hoping you're not going to never be anything. All right? Everybody keep telling you you're not going to never be anything. The world keep telling you you're not going to never be anything. And so, that happened. And so, when that happened, it was like, all right, the only thing I can be is a drug dealer. So I'm going to be the biggest drug dealer in the city. At least I'll be somebody there. So I started doing what my brothers was doing at the time. I started selling crack cocaine. I started standing on the corner, running the car, selling dope. And so I graduated. So by the time I graduated high school, my mom's house had been kicked in like 3 times by the police. Even the day I graduated, the same day I graduated, when I was gonna have a graduation party for me, because I still went to school every day, and so I was gonna have a graduation party after my graduation. So I graduated, and as we was coming down from the stage, you know, my mom came up to me and she was like, "Baby, we gotta go right now. The police just kicked the house in. Your brother's going to jail. We gotta go home." So I go home, you know, cap and gown on, and the police is everywhere. And it was just crazy because we was selling drugs right outside my mom's house, right out the front door in my mom's house. We was all selling drugs, me and my brothers and everybody. So I graduated, and then it was like welcome to the real world, you know. So this guy who my cousin's best friend was a guy from New York who I looked up to a lot. I had hung on to every word that he said, and at the time he was about 30. This was 2005. He was 30. He had a brand new 745. He had clearly over $100,000 cash stashed somewhere. He had a nice house. He had jewelry, gold. He had from a hood perspective, from a street perspective, he was what we consider hood rich, right? And when you in that environment, in that community, that is somebody, right? That's somebody. Because that's in your mindset, that's the only thing that's for you, right? So he told me that he like, man, listen, you ain't nothing like your brothers. Because at this time I wasn't doing anything. I was smoking weed, but that wasn't really, you know, in that world it wasn't really nothing. You know, I wasn't doing any heavy drugs. He felt like I had a head on my shoulders. So he had to start selling drugs for me. He gave me a bunch of drugs and wanted me to bring them back. How that transaction was turned out. So I started selling drugs. By the time I was 21, I had met some other people and doing some other things, and I was moved out of my mom's house, and I went and got a house. I went and got a condo, like apartment type condo in a rich neighborhood, you know, and I had made it in my sense, you know. I'm out of the hood, living with the rich white people. Got nice neighbors named Tom and stuff like that. I made it, you know. And so, but I didn't know the price that was going to come along with it. I thought money was going to make me happy, but it didn't. In the sense of, I had everybody trying to rob me, my friends, my family. Every time I go home, I have to do laps and go through Walmart parking lot, go through this parking lot, go through that parking lot, and sit here for a few minutes. Is that car following me? Is that car following me? I go home and I'm asleep, and I got my gun right there because I can't sleep because I know, man, if Jack boys, somebody will come rob me, somebody will kick the door in, and I can't say that I didn't enjoy life because I was making a lot of money, but it was stressful at the same time, and for some reason, I still was not content. it still didn't bring me the happiness that I thought it was going to bring me. And so I started popping ecstasy pills. And quickly I started getting real full of myself, real full of this person, this drug dealer image that I had took on, and I wanted everything that came along with it. So I started popping ecstasy pills. I started snorting cocaine when I was about 22. And man, my life at that point, it just started spiraling. It started spiraling. By the time I was 24, man, I had lost everything. I lost almost everything. I was back in my mom's house. When I was 24 and I was sleeping on my homeboy couch. I was living with my homeboy. He was about 34. I was like 24. We both living with his mama. And every single day, all we do is sell drugs and get high all night. And that became my life. And I met a girl who was from the beach. I met her. And she used to hang out with these little kids, these little rich kids that used to buy weed from me. And I met her. And, we became real good friends. And eventually, we started dating. And she comes from a different world that I come from. She was rich, had, a maid that cleaned up her bedroom, she lived on the beach, and she just came from a different world than me. And it's a girl I never thought I would ever be with her. We were just friends, And I know that she liked me because she seen a side of me that nobody else seen. She didn't see the thug part. She seen that person that I had the potential to be. So she liked that part of me. And so her parents did not want anything to do with me. Because if you was to look me up and Google me, then my whole family history from my dad to his brothers to my brothers, you Google the last name Bonney and, the whole family history, there. And so at this time, luckily, all my brothers had been in prison. All my brothers had been in jail. At this time, and not luckily, I didn't think that God had a hand because I had never caught a sales and possession charge. I had never been to jail for armed robbery. I had never caught a sales and possession charge. I had never been caught for selling drugs. All my brothers had. And so me and her moved to an apartment together, and her dad was trying to encourage me to go get a job, just do stuff like that. So I went and filled out 50 applications, and nobody called me. Nobody called me back. Mind you, I didn't have a record. I had to I went to jail twice for fighting. That's it. And I had a criminal mischief for kicking the guy's car. I went to jail for kicking the guy's car. So I had a fighting charge, then I had a criminal mischief. So, but I couldn't get a job. So I was just at the time, it was whatever. I was just continuing to sell drugs. And I was sitting at home one day, smoking weed. I remember I could just say, I was sitting at home smoking weed, and this commercial came on TV. It was called UTI, Technical Institute, and learn how to paint cars and do cars and automobiles, and I don't know nothing. I can't even change oil. But I'm the only thing I seen was painting cars, and in the hood, in the streets, if you know how to paint cars, you make a lot of money because all the drug dealers they pay thousands of dollars for their cars to get painted. So I'm if I can go to school and learn how to paint cars, I can make a lot of money. So I was let me just call these people. Mind you, I was high as a kite. Commercial came on TV and I called. 15 minutes later, a guy was well, Mr. Bonney, you accepted. All you got to do is move to Houston, Texas. And I'm I'm from Florida. But I always in me always wanted a better life. I always wanted a better life, right? When I was 13, I used to tell myself, I'm not a thug, I'm just real. I used to always tell myself that. By the time I was 21, I was the thug and I was proud of it. So I always wanted a better life. I just never thought that it was for me. So the guy was all you gotta do is come here, you do it faster, we'll get you in, we'll help you get a school, we'll help you get a job, we'll help you with this. So I told my girlfriend, I'm listen, These people said they're going to help me get this, help me get that. So I'm talking to her parents, and she was working for her parents' company at the time. And so her mom's dad was like, listen, we'll pay for the first 6 months if y'all go. Pay for the first 6 months. So I had like 6 months to go, and I was like, okay, we're going to go. So I went around telling everybody here, I'm going to college. You know, finally going to college, I'm going to get up out of here, I'm going to make something of my life. And so I remember the night before I got ready to leave, I had my bag packed, and so I threw a party at my mom's house. And one person showed up. It was my brother. My oldest brother showed up. Nobody else showed up. Now, I'm going to remind you, if I was going to jail, the whole city would have came to my party. If I was getting out of jail, the whole city would have came to my party. Nobody came. And so the next day, I packed my bags. I went around to my family house. Hey, I'm going to see y'all. I remember my aunts. I'm like, where you going? I'm telling y'all for 6 months, I'm going to Texas. I'm going to Houston. And so I left. I told everybody that I sold drugs to, I basically preferred them to other people. I said, I'm not selling drugs no more. I'm going to Houston. The night before, I'm like, it's my last time smoking weed. I'm not doing drugs no more. I'm going to go to Houston. So I moved to Houston, and I started going to Universal Technical Institute. And the first week there, my teacher was a man named Sean Gary. And this guy was amazing. He really was. And what was amazing about him is that he shared Jesus in school. He wasn't supposed to. But he shared Jesus. And I had always felt like I was a Christian, right? I was a Christian. He was asking me I was a Christian. See, because what I knew about Christianity, my whole family was Christians. Drug dealers, gangbangers, and Christians. Right? We all Christians. And so my perspective of Christianity was always that. But I always felt I've done terrible things. You know, anytime I share my testimony, God don't allow me to hold back. Because you need to know the extent of whether you like it, and I need to know the extent of the person that I was. Right? I have broken into houses and put guns in people's heads for money. I have held 2 girls hostage in a house because they were snitching on me to the police and had a knife to their throat. I have shot at cars with kids in it because the gang member just called me out of my name. So I didn't know the kids in the car at the time, but that's the type of person I was. Right? I would beat up people because they owe me money. They won't pay me. I didn't care. You got your kids to take care of. You owe me $1,500 and I owe my money. I don't care about your kids. Pay me my money. Gave me my drugs, I owe my money. That's the person that I was. So, fast forward back to Sean Garrett. So I asked him, I said, hey, what church you go to? You know, he told me about it. And I was like, man, I think I want to start back getting into church. See, because I had this mindset that I believe in God, right? I'm a Christian. I do believe in God. So when I clean myself up and I get my life together and I get married and I settle down and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of doing those things that I said. Hey, I'm get back into church now. Start back going to church. And I didn't know how self-righteous I was at the time. I know now. Because I was saying was, like I said last night, see, I can clean myself up. I can clean me up, God. And when I clean me up, I come to you to save me from hell. That's the only why I need you. But I can clean me up. I can fix me up. I can do that. So I was like, it's that time, you know. It's time for me to start going back to church because I done made it, you know. I'm doing the right thing. And so I think that Saturday I went to this church, which was Life Spring at the time, right? Life Spring, right? And I remember I think we did an altar call. And any time I done sat in church like twice from the time I was old enough to stop going, from like 12 to like 24, I had been to church like probably once. And I stopped going because every time I went inside church, I just felt like, and I sat in the back and I was like, they don't even know that Satan is in the corner right now. You know, they don't know, like, it was like, when I walked in church, it was like those people, when I see them, I'm like, y'all don't even know half the stuff I've done, you know, like, I didn't know grace, I didn't know mercy, I didn't know any of these things, I didn't know any of that, right? I didn't know any of that, so I just felt guilty. And I just always wanted to just run back out of that church as fast as I could. And so did an altar call, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna come up here. I think I came up with a prayer or something like that. And Scott,
I love you so much, dude.
Scott pulled me to the side, and he was talking to me, and he asked me, do I think I'm a good person? And I'm going to be honest with you. I know I told you I've done some crazy things, but I always felt like I was a good person. I did. I truly felt like I was a good person. And so he asked me that. I was like, yes. And so he was like, have you ever stolen anything from somebody? Like, his brother stole or something like that. He asked me. I was like, yeah, I stole. You ever did this? And you ever did that? And you ever did this? And by the time we got done, it was like, whew, I ain't a good person, man. I never did that. And so from that day forward, I started going to that church, and I was going to school, and when I was in high school, my guidance counselor, one thing that she told me, she said, Mr. Bonney, over the last 12 years, you've accumulated the education of a 6th grade, right? And so when I was in school, I had a 4.0 at UTI. I was doing well. I mean, I was doing great. And then one day, I was going to church, but I was going to church on Sundays, going to church, on Wednesdays, just going to church, but I was still me, right? I was still me. I was just going to church. And so I was at a store one day, and a guy came up to me, and I was in Houston, a guy came up to me, and he asked me if I want to buy some drugs. And I was like, nah, man, I don't do drugs, but, if you know a studio I can go to, I do music. I do rap music. It wasn't Christian rap music at the time. I do rap music. So I was like, hey, he was like, so I got his phone number now. I know when I dig to the root of it all, I wanted that guy's number because drugs came back up in the picture. And one thing that we talk about in the hood in Florida about Texas is that you don't want to go to jail in Texas, right? So that's all the thing. My brother was like, listen, man, whatever you do, man, I'm going to jail in Houston. Don't go to jail. So I wasn't going to come here and look for any drugs. I really wanted to be done with that. I really wanted to be done with the drugs part. And so about a month later, I ended up hanging out with some guys, and ended up calling that guy, and ended up going to get drugs from him. And I started back doing drugs. And then, so I was going to church, partying, doing drugs on the weekend, and going to school. My relationship started failing, and I started making dumb decisions, doing dumb things, and then, boom, get a phone call saying that a man tried to molest my 4-year-old daughter. And every piece of guilt, every piece of everything just came back. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, I'm going to go kill this guy. That's it. I'm going to kill him. If I can get Florida fast enough, I'm going to go kill him. And so I ended up going to Florida, and it was like when I got home, the guy had confessed that night, and he was in jail, and there was other night we would get to him. But when I got home to Florida, it was like I never left. It was like I put back on the outfit soon the day I got here. The day everybody knew I was home, my phone started ringing, and people went to buy drugs. And so, like, literally that first week, I was back to selling drugs. I was right back selling drugs. Right back hanging out with my brothers doing drugs. And at the time, my girlfriend was pregnant. She was due like January. And so New Year's in 2012 came. And I found myself in the hospital. I told my sister, I got to go to the hospital. My heart pounding real hard. I don't know what's going on. I didn't go to the hospital. I went to the hospital, and I remember talking to my girlfriend, and she was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm done with this. If you get some type of help, I can't do this, And so I was like, tell you what I do. I go back to Houston, I talk with Scott, and I check in some type of rehab. I'll go to rehab. And where I come from, we just don't go to rehab. Like, we don't go to rehab. My uncle been smoking crack for 50 years, and he's not an addict. we don't go to rehab. Black people don't go to rehab. That's the stereotype in the hood. We don't go to rehab, right? We're not addicts. We all do drugs. And see, in that culture, in that environment, in that community, everybody does drugs, right? That's the norm, right? We all just do drugs. We do drugs, we hide, we do that. It's just the norm. So you're not an addict. That's life. You know, if doing drugs is life, then you're not an addict. Although it's not true at all, it's an addict. But so I came and I came back to Houston and I checked into a rehab called Open Door Missions in Houston. Right here. And so I went there and it was a year program and I was like, well listen, Holly gotta have the baby and then I'm gonna go there for 3 months because she needs about 3 months of settling in and then she's gonna come back to our house in Houston and I'm gonna get out of the program. And so I went to the program and in the program for the first time I opened the Bible for the first time on my own. And it was like I just couldn't put it down. Everything, my life started making sense. Everything started making sense. And it was amazing because God was just pouring in me all this revelation and life just started making sense. So I got out of the program. 3 months later, my girlfriend came back and I continued to start going to church. And but there was a whole lot of me that I still haven't dealt with yet. There was a whole lot of guilt. There was a whole lot of shame. There was a whole lot of me that I still haven't dealt with. There's a side of me that I would never let anybody see. You know, like this is good. This Jesus is good, and all this stuff is good. But there's a part of me that, man, it's like I just can't shake that person. I just can't shake that dude. And what I discovered later in life is that, you see, my identity that I had been searching for my whole life was wrapped up in the image and the person that I created for myself in the streets. And if you was to take that person from me, then I was nobody. And I had been searching for identity my whole life. And so I didn't know yet about my identity in Christ. And so I didn't know that I can let that identity go because I had a new identity in Christ. I didn't know that yet. Although I had revelation from God, although I had people pouring into my life. And I ended up getting a new job. And I had this like, okay, I don't listen to rap music, I don't do this, and I was telling people that I got this new job. And I got this new job and I started hanging with this guy. And this guy comes from the same world that I come from in Florida. You know, he had a lot of respect. He sold drugs, he did this, and he was in gangs. And so every day we went talking about, because I told him, like, when I first met him, I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian, man. He was like, I'm a Christian too, blah, blah, blah. And then after hanging with this guy so much, my desires started changing, right? Because every day at work we was talking about, we trading rap songs back and forth and talking about drugs and talking about the streets. And I started desiring those things again. And my desires started changing from church and all this, and it started changing back into that person. And when that started happening, I started fading away as far as I can from church and God and everything. I was just like, man, I didn't know what was happening. My desires were changing. And it was just like, it was so much love from so many people here. So much love. And it was just like, because although this new Jesus was great, it was amazing, and the people that I'm around was amazing, it was just like, y'all don't know me. You know, you don't know me. If you knew me, you wouldn't do this for me. You wouldn't be in my corner. You don't know me, you know? I hate me, you know? And so I started to separate myself from God, and everybody just trying to living these two different lives, you know, in front of God. I'm this and that person. I'm trying to be this person, but when I go home, I'm the real me. You know, this is me. And so I ended up just falling. I ended up falling hard. After about a year and a half, I ended up going to a big cookout thing with this guy at my job, where it's like they barbecue and you walk around and you taste all the barbecue and people stuff, and all day long people kept offering me drinks for 8 hours. And I was like, yeah, I'll drink for 8 hours. I'll drink. And on the way home, it was like, I need a drink. I'm like, I can do this. I can have a drink. And so I went to a club on the way home. And I went into a club and I sat down. And I couldn't get comfortable. I was shaking like I've never shook ever in my life. And I was like, why am I shaking so much? And I was like, I just need a drink. And I can calm down. I order a drink, and this drink is sat in front of me. And I was like, I was sober for a year and a half, you know? I don't need this drink. And I was like, I know what happens if I take this drink. And I was like, I need to calm down. I can't relax. I can't. And it was like, I could not just do it. I just could not relax. So I drank. Next thing you know, I was buying cocaine in the bathroom. Next thing you know, I was popping ecstasy pills, and life just went straight downhill from there. I started messing up, and then the man, I just started messing up, and Scott, man, he just would not let up. Man, he just would not let up. He kept calling me and coming by my house and calling me and trying to reach out to me. And it was just like the guilt, the guilt, because in my mind it was like, man, this was going to happen eventually. Like, this ain't real. Like, you thought you was going to have a good life. Like, you thought, you know what I mean? You thought I wasn't going to catch up with you. And me and my girlfriend started getting into it, and I just fell back into that lifestyle. And so, long story short, a lot of crazy stuff happened. Scott had called the police on me, thinking that he thought I was gonna hurt my wife. I had lost everything. Lost myself, lost my job, lost everything. And I told him that I wanted to go to a rehab again. I wanted to try to get my life back together. And Scott was telling me I needed to, and Timothy was telling me I needed to. And so I checked into rehab June 2013 in Louisiana. Scott drove me to Louisiana. Now, what I knew about Louisiana, I knew country. I knew city. I knew that Louisiana was New Orleans, because that's the picture I had. And so I remember being like 5 minutes away, and Scott was like, oh yeah, we're 5 minutes away. And all I can see is cornfields. What do you mean 5 minutes away? And so they bring me to the place, and it's some broken, rundown place, and I'm just like, no way I can be here. And and I was like, okay, but I'm like, Timothy just drove me like 5 hours. There's no way I can tell Timothy I'm not staying here. Take me back. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna ride this thing out. And in that rehab is where I told God, okay, God, I get it now. If I'm gonna follow you, if I'm gonna do this, then you can have it all. Scott asked me before I left, he asked me, do I hate the hood? Do I hate the environment that I come from? And I told him, no, I didn't. I said, I don't hate it. The reason why I didn't hate it is because my identity was in it. I had a name, I had a reputation that was very highly respected. And if you were to take that away from me, man, who am I without that? Who am I without the streets? Who am I without the hood? But when I was in there, is when I found my identity in Christ. And I started seeking after Christ the same way I sought after that drug when I wanted to get high. The same way I walked for miles to go get drugs. The same way I called 10 different drug dealers because mine didn't have none. I sought after God with everything, and I said, God, you can have it all. You can have it, right? Give it all up. You can have it. And man, he began to pour into my life. He began to pour into my heart. And over the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years, man, God has done so much in my life and has changed me. The Bible says, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creation. And I tell people all the time, like, the person that I used to be and the person that he's brought me is two different people. It's like a dream. Like, I dreamed of being that other person. It's that far stretched from reality. and my identity now is in Christ. You know, it's in Christ. Like I know who I am in Christ, and so I just began seeking after God. And so today, that was in 2013. Today, God has restored my relationship. You know, I actually know what it is to love one woman, and want to be with one woman. I'm able to be a father to my kids. I am the youth pastor at my church for the junior high. God has taken everything that was negative or mistakes and things that I've done and used those things to bring Him glory in every way. Today I'm crazy. I am a Louisiana sheriff deputy. And, yes, I'm a sheriff deputy, and I teach personal development to inmates, and I teach cognitive behavior and cognitive thinking. And God has done so much. He's done so much since I can't explain. But I live a different life now. My life is 100% committed to telling people about Jesus. Because the life I live today, I don't deserve it. I really don't. And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to be humble. Because like, man, I should be dead. I should be in jail. And I know that. I don't deserve it. You know? And a big part of it, I mean, it all has to do with God, you know? But there's a lot of people like Scott and Ray and Jenny and all you guys that poured into my life. And it really hurted me so much that you guys had met me as the new believer. But you didn't know enough about my past to understand why I felt that I felt, you know? And I'm just glad that this is probably the toughest testimony I ever had to give. I don't give my testimony at home before. Because I know that I'm in a room full of people that actually genuinely love me and have sacrificed so much for me. And especially you, Scott. I've never had somebody care so much about me and pursue me in the way that you did, in the way that you had. Most people just gave up, you know. I remember the day you came to my house and you came with Guy and you was like, you thought to yourself like, Dray's probably gonna try to beat me up for coming here, you know, and you still came, you know, and there was times where I had messed up my money financially. I had messed up my money getting high and doing drugs, and I couldn't pay my bills, and I called Ray and, hey man, I need some help, you know. He gave me some money to pay my bills. Joe, man, helped me out with a job. I love you guys so much, man. And I want you to know y'all played. You guys showed Jesus to me. You know, every time I think about all you guys was, if I was to say what Jesus looked like, then I can look at so many things that y'all did that imitated Christ, that imitated Jesus. And, you know, that's what led to the question that I asked you guys. Are you a Christian? You know, because what I know now about what it means to be a Christian is everything that you guys implemented and everything that you guys did. You know, I have what it looks like to be Jesus in today. I've seen that in everything that y'all did. You know? And so when I think about Christian, what it means to be Christian, I had to ask myself, what does that name even come from? I know everybody knows it means to be Christ-like. And so when I sat down with God and really sought out what that means, what does it mean to be a Christian? And what I've learned over the last 5 years is that we was called Christians first in Antioch, so the Bible said. And the city of Antioch was known as the city. It was kind of like every city mixed in. Every culture mixed in Antioch. So, right, you can find all the great foods and clothing and material, everything right there in Antioch. And then you had Stephen being killed, Stephen being killed, and Christians, believers, flew every different places, and they came to Antioch. And Antioch was divided by race and belief, right? So it was this big circle with the center court in the middle, and there was divided walls that divided every different culture, right? And everybody, when you came there, you went to where your people were, right? You went to where your community was. And these Christians, these followers came in there, and they upset the definition of community. Now, these was people on the run from what they believe in. You know, you expect, I'm going to run because I'm a Christian. So when I go to this town, you think I'm saying I'm a Christian? I'm going to run from being a Christian. I'm just a guy, right? No, they came in there, and they redefined community. And so the people didn't know, they never seen this before, they didn't know what to call them. What do you call what they're doing? So in an attempt to belittle them, they start calling them little Christ. Little Christ. So it's really said as Christians, right? Christians, right? And so when I think about Christian, the N, right, it's a group, right? So to be a Christian, to be a Christian means it is now who I am, right? See, being a Christian is not what I do. I'm an instructor. I'm a teacher. That's what I do. But being a Christian is who I am, right? That is who I am. So if I'm a doctor, I'm a Christian that's a doctor. If I'm a lawyer, I'm a Christian that's a lawyer. That puts everything that I do from that purpose in perspective, right? So the higher powers in Antioch is what gave them their name, which was Romans, because when the Romans used to see, and the people in Antioch, the leaders, when they used to see these Christians, these people, these followers of Christ, they didn't see male or female. And at that time, that was a big deal. They didn't see black or white or Asian or anything else. They seen Jesus in the way they talk. They see Christians in the way they carry themselves. They see Jesus in the way that they accept persecution. They see Jesus in the way that they tell people, I'm sorry even though that you wronged me. In everything that they did, they seen Jesus. So they start calling them Christians because y'all act like Jesus. Y'all imitate that Jesus so much. So y'all Christians. And every person here that played a part in what God's brought me, you showed me that. You showed me what it looks like to be a modern Christ and to imitate Christ. You guys showed me that, and I hate that I had to go through all that. But I learned a lesson in my fall. And the lesson that I learned that if I'm gonna follow Jesus, I'm gonna follow Him 100%, all the way. And that means sacrifice. That means that I'm going to have to cut off a few people, and they may cut me off. I don't have the best relationship with my family anymore. I don't have the best relationship with some people because they say I'm too radical. That's what they said. And they said that I'm brainwashed. That's what they said. My brother told me, like, I'm honest with you, we thought you was brainwashed in Louisiana. They said, Louisiana got brainwashed. Because when you spend time with Jesus, it rubs off on you. It rubs off on you. I guarantee you there's some things about Courtney that you'd be like, she act just like Scott right now. Scott would say that, right? That's what Scott would say. Because she doesn't know it, but he has rubbed off on her because she has spent so much time. You said to me 6 years ago in Scott House, you said, I can't wait to see where God brings you in the next 5 years. And I said to myself, I'm like, I hope that's true. Like, whatever it is that you see God doing, I hope, because I needed it. I needed this Jesus thing to be real. Because I was so much time ready to kill myself when I did it. Because I hated life and I hated me more than anything. But I thought about that, and that's why I called you last year. Because you've seen something that I didn't see. And you prophesied without knowing it over my life. Jesus showed you where he was going to bring you. And God is amazing. He is. And before I go, I want you to know it's not what my testimony has everything to do with what Jesus Christ can do in someone's life. That's it. It's what Jesus Christ can do. If anybody is glorified today, if anybody is lifted up, it's Jesus. It ain't me. It's God. Because I recognize the fact that without Him, none of this happens. None of this is real. This life that I have today, none of it. And so, man, I don't know what you may be going through, maybe struggling with or whatever, but man, God is real and He exists. Alright? It's real and He exists. And as believers, we're called to love. We're called to love in every circumstance, in every situation. We're called to love people. Alright? I didn't deserve your love. I didn't deserve your love. But you love me anyways, like Jesus. And I love y'all so much for that. That's the Jesus story.